Hi, Dr. Zara. How are you? Welcome back to part two.
Hello, Vicky. Long time.
Long time, all good?
Yep, all great. Let's get into it.
So, last time we were talking about your timeline, about the various nuances of your life and how you transitioned through it while curving your own niche and micro niche and
Yes.
transitioning towards the things that you're doing right now in your life, right?
hmm
So, what are the other nuances that you want to ponder into and you want to bring into the table with regard to the conversation that we're having today?
Well, we had kind of stopped where there's a young girl blooming into a lady,
Yeah.
all while trying to figure out, a career choice.
Yeah.
And yeah, so luckily for me, I ended up, starting med school. That journey wasn't so easy because it almost looked like at many points that I would almost not make it, or maybe that wasn't meant for me. Because believe it or not, I never in a million years thought that I would take a gap year, but I took a gap year. And even now I
Mhm.
forget that I actually took a gap year because I had missed the application deadlines for um, medicine here, where I'm currently practicing in Dubai, because I
Mhm.
wanted to pursue it back home. So, and I actually traveled, and my dad let his 17, almost 16, go and live back home all alone in a hostel. So that was something, unheard of. So yeah, that was an experience too.
Mhm.
And I made it there, and then he changed his mind, like a daddy's daughter that I am. Then he got me back here. But all to say that it was meant to be. And I waited for a year for the admissions to open. So and finally started medicine here. So after a 6-year grueling journey, which was very eye-opening for me also, not just in terms of education, but also in terms of actual real life socialization, which for some part maybe I had been avoiding subconsciously, I think.
Mhm.
So I think university was a phase that really it puts you out there, it puts you in the spot no matter what. Everything is out of the way, whether it be uniform that is from school, or you get to be yourself and no one stops you. You're not really monitored as much. So when you know that you're finally you can take charge of your day, the 24 hours that you have, most of it. I mean, there's no specific routine. Nobody would really complain if we didn't attend class. So, that was the first proper unmonitored time of my
Mhm.
life in the timeline, if we're talking about. So that was fun. It was quite eye opening. Yeah. So I saw a lot of the personality that I didn't explore before, or I didn't have the chance to, because you can only know about yourself if you are in that position, in a certain situation. If unless you don't see your own reaction and ponder upon it, you will not know what you will do in a certain situation. So that was in terms of new experiences. I think my university life was the most memorable one. Yeah.
So, while you're talking about the university life and now when you're working in the real world scenario, what
hmm
are the similarities and the differences that you can observe?
I never really thought of university as some sort of a schooling. That's why I did that. I'm telling you. For me, real life began when university began, where I didn't
Mhm.
have to wear a school uniform, where we had superiors, which I think we even have now. Like where I work in a clinic, I'm not the medical director all of a sudden. So I still have seniors, like I had professors back in university. So there's a lot to learn always. I think that is one fact that you cannot shy away from, whether it be
Mhm.
university or even if you're a specialist, a consultant. You're still learning. You're expected to do your continuous education hours. Like you have to keep learning because medicine and knowledge in general is evolving, we keep getting to know something or the other every day. So that is one thing, that you'll always be in a negative state when it comes to knowledge. You cannot be overwhelmed with it. I mean, you can never have enough. It's always going to be less. You'll always be learning. So that is one thing that I saw, and it's nice to have superiors and seniors who also realize this thing. And luckily for me, I've had that kind of an experience with my colleagues. So that, I think, was similar between university and actual, practicing a career. Other than that, I think, like I said, social interactions for me were on an all-time high starting university. Like, whether I liked it or not, I had to be part of a research team. I had to do a lot more presentations than I ever had to do in school, and meaningful ones. It's not like, no one was forced to listen to anything. So when you're in university and the topics that you have, the way you present things is also different. You're more free to be casual, I think, than you are in school. I don't know if that's just my experience, but you can resonate with the audience. You try to, because obviously there are older people listening to you as compared to in high school or when in your younger years. So I think people listen to you a lot more when you're in university. When you're at work, you're heard more, and by more mature ears. By it's not just something routine that you're doing. It's like, if I have a patient, he wants to listen to what I have to say about his condition, and I want to listen to him. So you learn to listen also.
And why do you feel they're listening to you? Because a placebo effect has got created, that just because the person is there in a certain ecosystem, environment, got sourced, got recruited, got hired, wearing a certain uniform, wearing a certain label, and because they're at the beck and call of the doctors, the paramedics, the technicians, the staff that is there, by default, we are able to influence them. And in university, because we have a label of a student, even when we are talking sense, no one would be keen to listen to us. Something on those lines?
On the contrary, I think in university, if anyone is serious about their job, a professor or anyone, I think that they're really listening more than they are in a school setting. Like, I keep comparing it to younger years. That's been my experience. The same thing goes with a hospital setup. It's because it's the it's the sheer seriousness, the graveness of the situation. Like, somebody who's sick with, like, someone who's got a stomach ache or just a mild palpitation is going to immediately think that they have a heart attack. I don't think they're just taking me seriously because I'm in a position, because also that they want to know what's wrong with them. And if I am listening to my seniors, be it in university, or you want to learn, because you're dealing with, it's a serious situation. No one's really joking around, I think. But though it does come to a point where, people get used to a certain routine, and I've seen, and especially in government hospitals, even here, like, people don't take diseases so seriously, or like in the current pandemic, even now, a lot of medical professionals, you'll be finding them not following the proper PPEs, having their masks hanging down till their necks, reusing the same masks, not washing their hands before they touch the mask, and simple things like that. It's just because I think it's human nature, right? That when you get too much of something, you just get used to it. You get used to the danger. You get immune. It starts rubbing off on you. So yeah, your behaviors get immune. It's not that you will not get the disease, but till it hits you, you kind of get accustomed to something because of the frequency with which it's happening. If it's a lot, then you stop getting scared of it. until it maybe hits you, or maybe you get
Mhm.
affected directly. So it's a serious profession if you talk about medicine. And in the beginning years, at least, everyone takes it very, very seriously.
Mhm.
And I think as you go up the timeline, you will, if you become like, you climb the ladder, you become a consultant, you become a specialist, you know you have people under you to rely on, you know. That's why you'll see in some places the consultants lazing around, or they'll just throw all the work on the residents, or the specialists, or the first on call, the second on calls. So yeah, it's serious though. It's serious business. There's no two ways about it.
Mm. And do you
Mm.
feel the contribution to the GDP is enough for the healthcare sectors?
Whoa. Contribution to the GDP. You mean by the healthcare sector?
No,
That depends
I'm
from
talking
country to
about,
country, doesn't it?
yeah, like I'm talking about India. In India, we only have 3% of the contribution to the GDP from for the healthcare sector. That means
Mm-hmm.
for the healthcare, they are only contributing 3% from the GDP, and that's a very low figure. Something very similar, around 4% or 5% is for the educational system. So education and
Mm-hmm.
healthcare is something that I feel should be given a prior importance, something which is lacking in India. So I just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
understand the situation there in Dubai.
No. Obviously, it's if you know the figures, like we have such a good control over the. We're amongst the top countries who've been able to restrain the spread of the pandemic. You know,
Mhm,
at
mhm,
least nationally. So it is because they are very freely spending on healthcare,
mm,
and more so because they know they cannot escape. They're very conscious about their own people,
mhm,
even though they're just, I think, make up 30 or 40% of the country's population. But because they know that they can get affected, especially because they're dwindling in numbers, so they do invest a lot. Whatever the reasons behind it, the budget, you mean, is a lot for healthcare. Yeah, it's adequate. It is enough. You will get healthcare. You can get access to home care. You can. It is expensive though. I think like anywhere. Not like anywhere else. Healthcare is expensive here unless you have an insurance,
mhm,
and it's mandatory to have health insurance here. And malpractice is very hard, so people are very careful. I think it's well regulated,
mhm,
but if you're like if you want to get access to like a good facility, or you want to have top of the notch, then you have to spend some bucks, even if you have an insurance. So in that sense, the budget for nationals and non-nationals, the way they divide it, maybe there's some discrepancy, but overall as a nation, like they make sure everyone does have healthcare, and emergency services are almost always free. So yeah, that way that they have a fair amount in the GDP.
mm.
Mm.
And while you were talking about Dr. Zara, I was thinking about the transition from my college and university to corporate. And one thing which was a major transition was that we
Mm-hmm.
never used to report to anyone person.
Hmm.
Now we had to report to people, and we had to give that kind of an dashboard analysis of everyday numbers, what we are doing, the trends and all the BI. So,
Right.
so that is something that I feel is majorly that happens in the corporates, where you have to be extremely mindful about everyday data that you are crunching in, you're punching in, the way you are handling the customers, the clients, and the
Hmm.
way you're creating those profits. So it's more of a monitoring basis, increases the monitoring more, and it starts putting you into a kind of an where you have to be more accountable. The
Yeah,
accountability
exactly.
starts increasing more. And definitely during the pandemic, one thing that happened was that people started feeling as if they were walking on eggshells, and every day there
Hmm.
were firings and layoffs and all these outturns and all, and people were getting deboarded. So these were certain things that people started becoming more aware about, that anytime the job can be it can go away. But I feel
Hmm.
that with regard to the healthcare sector, there was a lot of boom. two sectors, pharmaceuticals and healthcare, there was a lot of boom, right?
Yeah, definitely. That did happen, but that being said, there was a lot of expectations also from the healthcare
Yeah.
providers, and
They were
people
they were like the
expected
frontline workers.
supernatural
They were the
things.
people like they were like the army at that time. They were the ones who were working in the forefront. They were sacrificing their own life for the betterment of the society. So hats
Yeah,
off to all the healthcare
definitely.
workers, definitely.
Definitely a lot of lives saved and a lot of lives lost.
Yeah.
Lost and a lot of martyrs, I would say.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And healthcare people, when they are working, the way they go into that particular structure, that process, they always try to create that feeling for the patients in such a manner that you can create a patient centricity. The patient is always in the center with regard to whatever amenities or whatever facilities that you want to provide them.
Yeah.
And certain times with regard to pandemic, many of them lost their lives because of that. But it was a very positive mindset and a very powerful and very courageous mindset that all the healthcare workers, they portrayed themselves in that manner.
Yeah, which I think, calls for a management or a crisis management program also in place, which I don't think like a lot of places
Mhm.
have, because you never know when a pandemic comes through like this time. I think it's a lesson for the whole world, where with be it healthcare or anywhere else, I think the way they've been firing employees is there should have been a better system or a safety net around all of this, to avoid all of the unnecessary trouble that came with the pandemic for a lot of people, not just in the healthcare sector. What I'm saying is basically management skills and crisis management, especially. I think you can shed some light on that, I'm sure. I mean,
Mhm.
I feel like that should have been in place better, or that should be like a prophylactic measure that should be like we have for fire safety training. So,
Mhm.
things like that should be in place for times like this.
Hmm.
More so with the
Uh,
evolving strains. You've got the Omicron strain now, so
yeah,
you never know what's going on. It's just never ending, it seems.
yeah, because there are a lot of mutations that are happening. Even for the Delta variant, this is that they have a lot of mutations, and this one also has a lot of mutations.
It's
So,
a virus, yeah. It's going to keep mutating till it decides to shut down. Yeah, that's one thing about them. We still haven't been able to get rid of the flu, the common flu, because it keeps changing. It's just that it
and
doesn't affect.
common flu is like a common symptom for almost every viral disease that is there. Even for
Yeah,
COVID and SARS, common flu was something that people used to think that it's common flu, and they have very similar symptoms. It becomes a bit dicey to gauge as to what exactly is the level of the disease that you're having till the time you're not getting
yeah.
diagnosed in a
That is
proper
the
medical center.
dilemma. Yeah, that is the biggest dilemma. Hopefully, we can constrain it in the days to come. Hopefully.
And now, when you transition from your university education into the corporate life or the healthcare,
Hmm.
what are some of the obstacles that you feel you have encountered and you have tried to smoothen them out in the process?
Hmm. For me, Vicky, I would like to confess that it's high time that I specialized. I feel like, there are certain times when me being a general practitioner, it kind of limits you, that you have to stop at a certain level of care. You have to contact tertiary care. You have to refer people to a hospital.
Mhm.
So I think it's not really an obstacle, more of a personal goal, which I should have achieved earlier. But it's
Mhm.
something that keeps, bugging you in the back of your head, that you wish that you could complete the care here. It's also because I'm in a clinic setup. Sometimes, we don't have the diagnostic tools, or so the lack of resources in a primary healthcare setup kind of, may look like an obstacle, even though hospitals are in reach, and by the time you refer them, it's never been that someone has lost their life,
Hmm.
even emergency cases. But then you do see that if you were the first point of care for that patient who is in need of, let's say, tertiary care. So that would be nice. So to simplify it, like, being in a hospital would have been better than being in a clinic. I currently work in a clinic. So we do not, we're still at a primary level. We do not have a tertiary setup. So we don't have, for example, coronary healthcare, or we cannot do PCIs. We cannot, take care of cardiac patients. There's certain emergencies that really you would, feel bad if you lost a patient to them. So, but in terms of obstacles, not really any. It's a journey. There are no such obstacles. Maybe sometimes where you feel like like I said, lack of resources, or diagnostic tool, or you need to contact a lab, or certain tests that are not available at your clinical setup. Things like that. But other than that, I don't see anything as an obstacle. It's a learning opportunity. I've never really looked at any shortcoming as an obstacle. Yeah. So that way it all plays out. You feel good by the end of the day that I like being a doctor, is what I can say by the end of it. For me, yeah, I still can't get over it that I did not consider this as a career choice, So I might not be seeing obstacles in it because it's something that I am getting passionate about. I might just see everything as a boon rather than a bane.
So for the sake of the listeners, would you like to bring more awareness to these terms of primary care, secondary and tertiary care, so that people become more aware about it?
Well, it depends on the country that you're in, but I think in every country there is you have the clinics, like a general practice. You first approach a general practitioner. This setup is named more so because for insurance purposes, like for most insurances, you'll have to go through a primary setup. Like you just approach a general practitioner. You cannot directly go and see a cardiologist, for example, or a neurologist. Okay, even though you need that doctor. So you have to go through a triaging system. That is the primary setup, where you will be initially evaluated by a general practitioner who's not specialized. And then there is secondary care. If needed, we will transfer or refer a patient to a tertiary hospital or a secondary. That is the secondary care, where you can get specialist help, and if needed, specialized healthcare units like coronary units or intensive care units. So that is a tertiary level. So you have primary, where the GPs kind of strain out the simple cases. Not everyone really needs specialist care, So that saves, like you were talking about the budget, that saves a country a lot of burden, and it evens out access to specialists for people that really need it, than just everyone rushing in to see a specialist. So basically, primary healthcare, and I think it's very well done in the UK. And primary healthcare is like a foundation for a good healthcare system for any country. So if you can, and everyone should have access to primary healthcare. It's cheaper, obviously. Like a GP consultation is cheaper than a specialist consultation. So more people have access to. It's just the more severe the case, the higher you climb up the ladder. Primarily GPs see patients, and then secondarily and tertiary is going to be in a higher specialized hospital, which is usually referred to by GP to a hospital. So basically that's it. It's I think people, depending on your budget and your pocket, what allows you, people will not stop at going and seeing a specialist the first thing that they can, So but this system is put in place for nationwide, like you have an infrastructure for any kind of system. So that way, if it goes through this, then it's smoother. Yeah, it lessens the burden of costs in healthcare. Yep.
Nowadays, we we see a lot of youngsters uh, who are in their the teenagers and all. They are going into this fad and fashion of entrepreneurship, creating a startup, creating some kind of an
Hmm.
online e-commerce business and all. Anything that you are fond of, that you want to venture into, that you're planning in the near future? What's your take on this?
Me, Vicky, for the longest time, not really that long, but this year I've kind of started to read up about uh, trading in currencies and
Mm-hmm.
cryptocurrency. Like,
Mm-hmm.
am I jumping the bandwagon? But yeah, that is interesting. I'm all for it. We
Mm-hmm.
need new ideas. We need young people to, the idea of working in an organization as a starting from a menial job and then climbing up is slowly dying out, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a good thing, if you're hungry to reach the top and you want to innovate, you know then you probably will end up somewhere good and you will have some good ideas to the solutions that we need nowadays. So all for entrepreneurship, all for, like, who knew cryptocurrency would take off like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's untouchable money, but it's just it's running so many households.
Are you also
So
planning to start any of your own startup? Any idea that you have pondering deep inside you?
ideas, yeah, that has always been something, but I haven't really sat down and thought actively upon it. Maybe you and me can think of something,
Think of
like something
something.
that we really need to find a solution to. I think it should be solution based. That's something that always sells.
So one of my friends,
And
he's working for an omni-channel approach in healthcare,
uh-huh.
and he has his organization called Healthcar. He's a CEO there, and he's
Okay.
trying to create an omni-channel approach in such a manner so that it becomes a kind of a community healthcare organization, where even
Okay.
if someone is in distress and there is some kind of a financial help that's supposed to be provided to him, or he requires that, he can just do a WhatsApp on a certain group,
Mm-hmm.
or like there's a group community there and the community becomes aware about it and they can start supporting. So that kind of a thing is not there in India or anywhere in the world. So that is something that he's working on right now, getting some investors and all working on his app. So I really like that idea. I might become a part of it, because definitely this thing will be it's almost like on the model of prevention is
Mm-hmm.
better than cure. So you're being
Mm.
very mindful, you're being very proactive. And we have seen that scenario in India and all over the world. When COVID hit, we were not
Mm.
ready to
Yeah.
sustain it in the right manner, and we did not have those adequate resources. And more than that, the awareness and the spread of the awareness, that where exactly you can find those centers where you can get vaccinated. So there was a lot of hodgepodge, and there was no
Mm.
proper information transfer. So there's something that we are planning for. Apart from this, one thing which is very close to my heart definitely is the education sector of India. Nothing is being
Yeah.
done there, and the rote learning system of the old British Raj, it has to end. And still, everyone is following that in the Indian diaspora. And what we are planning to do, because a lot of edtech startups are there, a lot of companies are there, they're getting fundings. But major thing is more about the fact that whether children are able to get that overall development that they require, because personality is the key. And till the time you're not able to voice out your opinion, or you don't have the power of voice or personality or body language, people won't give a damn about you. You might be having amazing ideas,
Definitely.
but they don't
Mm.
listen to you till the time you're not able to be articulate, or you have the comprehension fluency deep within you. This is something that I'm working on. So these are two things that I majorly feel will create a lot of impact in people's life, because definitely health is wealth. If you're healthy, then your mind is healthy. You can think about new things. You have that passion, you have that zeal, you have that enthusiasm, and you want to
Yeah.
keep on going forward. So these are two major things that I feel that is the need of the hour. Everyone should be focusing on.
That is true. There is a certain concept here that we have, that sort of like pain clinics, or
Mm-hmm.
um they provide like kind of health camps for those that cannot afford, and then word is spread out, and they're really evaluated by. So it has to be a humanitarian initiative taken by people in power or like higher up there, plus the specialists. And if you're talking about healthcare, where you can just ease in pain. I really like the idea, like a pain clinic, just a pain clinic in. We have a lot of rush here near the embassies, so they situated it there, and you see all kind of people in distress approaching the embassies. So it was well marketed there, I think, and it's a non-profit based organization. So doctors like Doctors Without Borders, like those kind of initiatives, they're always, they're as many as you can have is less, no matter what. So I think we're in need of those. And the education system, like you said, that's so true. I think public speaking and the power of voice is really, really important. I cannot stress that more. No, really, it is. I love the name of the podcast, and it speaks for itself. It is. It's really important. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, Dr. Zaara, like something with regard to you, like what's something people seem to misunderstand about you? Because sometimes what happens is that when you are portraying a role in a certain situation, certain ecosystem, we might portray our personality in a certain manner with regard to the tones, the mannerism, the idiosyncrasies, the behavior. When we bow in front of someone, our back is towards someone else. We can't please everyone. So what are those certain things that people misunderstand about you? Not hate about you, but misunderstand certain times. What do you feel while you're doing a reflection with regard to your own personality and your reaction and response?
What I have assessed about myself, I never really saw it as a negative, but if you always get a certain retaliation, a certain response, then you are forced to think. So one thing was, like, if I'm helping someone out in any way, okay, and sometimes I go all out. Most of the times I have to really hold myself back from not helping someone, and they think of it as a point of weakness. Like, I don't think people would exist that way. That if someone's helping you, that you strong arm them or squeeze them into helping you more, or constantly, misusing that trust that you're putting in you. I think I'm confusing you, but what I'm trying to say is, when I help someone, they think of it as my weakness, that I cannot stop helping them, when it's not that. And I found myself in situations where I step back and they think that it was their right in a way. They act as if I have become cruel if I've stopped assisting them in whatever way, So that, I think, my niceness is taken for foolishness, is what I can say. Sometimes. So I've learned to, or I'm trying to hold back on helping anyone and everyone, regardless of, where you don't know the person, but you will just help them because you can, and you just blindly trust them. I blindly trust people a lot. Maybe that is what I've learned. And I used to think, I still think that I will not change the way I think, but I will maybe hold back and assess people a lot more, before stepping into something like that. Yeah, you can, trust. You always have to trust your gut feeling. You should, but to act upon your gut feeling is a different thing than trusting it. So don't always be just to do the good deed. Don't rush to do good deeds nowadays. I think hold back to where it's really, really necessary, or
look before you leap.
Yeah. Look, think.
Think.
I think.
Look and think before you leap.
Yep. And look all around.
All around. 360. Yeah, I think it's a good advice, because normally people jump onto the fact of providing some service, some support, people have to be more mindful as to what is the person that you're giving the support to. And if there is any, if you feel that there is a canary in the coal mine, you become more mindful about it. Those are some red flags that would be coming there. And always listen to your gut feeling. Your intuition is the most powerful weapon that you have.
Yeah.
All right,
That
Dr.
is.
Zara, tell me about a patient that touched your heart or changed your practice or created some vibrations inside you, made you think. Any experience that you want to reflect on from your life?
Actually, yes. There was this certain patient that I had the opportunity of meeting last year.
I remember you once told me that there was a patient who gave you a red rose, and that was something that you cherished because you really liked that gesture by the patient. One one of the patients you told me about, right?
Yes. She was the wife of a patient
Yeah.
who I was taking care of. I was working with the geriatrics department,
Mhm.
and I used to do home visits back then, and I would visit the patients who were bedbound. So this certain gentleman had some renal issues, and his blood pressure was not in control. And you know how at that age, when you're old, you just need someone to talk you into doing things.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know, they become like kids. So he really enjoyed talking to me, and my back then used to just be like chit-chatting sessions with these people.
Mhm.
I would like to stress on the fact that I have not had interaction with the older age group of people because my grandparents from both sides have they're deceased before I could have proper interactions with them. So I really had like minimal experience with dealing with older people. So this for me was always heartwarming and softening at the same time when I would sit with them and with them, and we would just have a chat, and we check their charts, and I would have a word with the nurses. So at the end of it all, yeah, they had a pretty little garden in their house, and wherever there's plants and foliage and gardens, I just take a little tour inside. So I felt free to walk, and I think that his wife used to see me from the window admiring her rose plant. They had a rose plant and they had a few sunflowers. So yeah, that day on the way out, she plucked the rose for me. And though I don't like to kill flowers, I really thought that was sweet. And that actually smelled nice. It smelled fragrant
Mhm.
of a rose. So I had the rose for the longest time. It's somewhere here, dried up, the petals. That was a sweet gesture. Yeah, that was.
Any other patient that you were mentioning before I jumped onto this patient?
Yeah, there was a young lad who had he had been in an accident, and the accident itself, the details were very. I think the details of the accident touched my heart, and then his will to live and to survive even more. That also. So he was, I think, 24 or 23, and he was a national jiu-jitsu. Like he was going on to become the champion. Like he was in the finalists. And just a night before his last match, he was riding his bike and he hit a roundabout, which he didn't see. And for him, that was very weird also, because he takes that route always, and how could he have missed it? Bike flipped and he broke his legs, both of them. And also had a concussion on his back. So he had a spinal injury, and when I met him, he was paralyzed from both his legs. So he went like overnight from being this close to being the jiu-jitsu champion to being someone handicapped in a wheelchair, and for a 23-year-old like that. And every time he had on his bed, next to his bed, he had this IV lamp up. So you have like a rod that goes up. He would have his medals hanging, and he'd always be smiling, and like patient upset, or he'd just always be thanking God and just praising the Lord. And he welcomed me, and
Wow.
he didn't treat me like he was handicapped, or he didn't expect any kind of sympathy, or though he did want to, I just oversee his physiotherapy sessions with our physiotherapist. So, and just so he would treat me to tea and to coffee at his house. This was also a home visit I would do. This is back when I was doing home visits. I think I had very nice experiences back then when I would see the patients in their houses, because they're more relaxed, and it turns the table around. I'm their doctor, the visiting doctor, and a guest in a way. And people here are very hospitable. So, and I don't just get to meet them, I get to meet their family, their pets. It was lovely,
So this is very
They're,
interesting. Like, whichever location the person enters, they start transitioning into a different role. Like when you are entering in their location,
yeah.
they become the host. When they enter in your location, you become the host by default. It's also location specific behaviors are also something that is very pertinent with regard to healthcare workers.
Yep. And consultation also, the overall air about the consultation changes. The patient is more accepting towards the treatment when you see them in their
Also,
house.
they're comfortable. They're very
Yeah.
comfortable because they're in their own home setup. They are familiar with the environment, and they feel more connected to it.
Yeah. But they're adults, it's not as if in a clinic like there is a lot of people watching them or a lot of eyes thing. But they just tend to open up more and give more details and a better history if it comes to that at home or in their comfortable environment, like you said. So yeah, that's I think human nature, that they just you're more comfortable in your own zone where you've been accustomed to. So yeah, I really got influenced by him, and he recently got married despite
Oh,
all of that. So that was amazing to see. So he never gave up on anything, is what I'm trying to say. His willpower and his
optimism.
his optimism and his thirst to live and to thrive, and not consider himself anything less. He didn't choose to I'm sure he must have had fights inside him. Like, I saw something in his eyes. This is another topic that we should open up someday, but the eyes, like the way there are different looks in different people's eyes, and they
So
talk
I've
about the
done
experience.
so I've done a podcast on the power of oculesics.
Mm-hmm.
I'll send that to you. The oculesics is the study of the eye and the behaviors of the eye gazing and all.
Yep.
The eye shutting, the dilation of the pupils and the iris, and the cornea of the eye, and how you are making the eye gestures. So everything with regard to eye, we have covered in that. So
Right.
yes, definitely, when we see a person, eye contact is something that we do first. We look at the person through the eye. So eye is something that is it's a very active ingredient of body language, non-verbals.
Yep. So that was beautiful to see. So I had he was my patient for around 4 or 5 months. And by the time, like, we saw his legs strengthening, and then he could stand up, not really ambulate, but like, there was so much improvement and so much he could still drive his car with I think they had a specialized apparatus fit inside for him to control the accelerator and the brakes and everything. So he didn't give up on anything. Like, he made everything work for himself, and he would oversee his own equipment and how to take care of it and how to get it cleaned. Like, he wasn't lazy about it. He didn't end his life at 23 despite going into such a major traumatic experience. So that was very motivating, that made me reconsider a lot of things. And so there are these certain people that it's very rare that you come across some people who emanate such positive energy, and you really, when you sense it, that's when you know. Like, I can tell you a million things about positive energies and auras and vibes, but if you're not around someone who is giving that kind of frequencies out, you're never going to understand. So
Hmm.
that for me was one patient that I can never forget. Yeah.
Very interesting. Very interesting. And with regard to this aspect of healthcare or
Mm-hmm.
working in the healthcare, definitely it's very enriching, but also at the end, it's also a tad bit exhausting. So when you go back home, what are the things that you indulge or you penetrate into to give you that sense of calmness or that composure, whatever that you feel like sharing?
The first thing I do when I come home is I take my guitar, even though I'm not good at it. I go
Hmm.
and strum a bit. Music
Hmm.
really helps me. I love music.
Music helps you to
Um,
relax a bit.
yeah. So what I do, and I need some solitude. Though I like my job, I interact with over 100 plus people every day.
Hmm.
So it does, kind of put you in the zone all the time, and you want some time to yourself. Like some solitude doesn't harm. So I kind of sit quietly and listen to the emptiness of the room, or you can say meditate in a way.
Hmm.
I play my
That's,
guitar.
that's something on the lines of mindfulness.
Yeah. And
Right.
there's this certain thing also that happens, Vicky. It's funny, but when I sit down and if I just do nothing, I want to sit down for a few moments and just do nothing. When I come home, that's the first
Hmm.
thing, and then I pick up my guitar. If guitar is not the first thing,
Hmm.
so there's this certain, maybe it's fatigue but it cannot always be like I'm not that tired,
Hmm.
but I feel certain. How do I put it? It's like layers falling off
Hmm.
of my body. I feel from all over. I feel like I'm shedding some kind of
I
weight
think one of the
when I
reasons is
just sit.
because as you change the location, the thoughts that are resonating with that particular location, they also start shedding their weight over you, right? When you're coming from the healthcare environment, from your hospital and all, from your
Mm-hmm.
clinic, then you're not thinking about the things that are there in the clinic. Then you are there on your bed inside your home. Now you're thinking about the chores at home, whatever that you want to do now for the relaxation. And also as the thoughts are transitioning, the layers are also getting out of you, right? It makes you feel that relaxation deep within you.
What I think it's the way that the molecules in my body have been vibrating all day because I'm in a state of
Hmm.
in a worked up state.
Yeah.
Because I have to get this done. I have to get that done. I need to finish things. My clinic is very fast paced, so we're always on the on
Hmm.
our toes. So like when I come home, I'm not really thinking of anything. But what I was trying to tell you is that I start coming down to my baseline frequency, which I think in the beginning of the interview I told you I'm very laid back. I'm a very sedentary person. Like
Hmm.
my mind is working, but my body is most of the times it's on standby. So I think a lot. Yeah. So I feel that weight of the kinetic energy. Okay.
Hmm.
The
Going
molecules, literally, the
down.
molecules in my body they're coming down to their basal potential. So there is literal energy shedding off, you know?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That is relaxation for me. It's not like getting a massage or something. It's just me sitting and not thinking about anything, or just lying down, and then the actual particles in my body calming down.
Hmm.
Am I going somewhere like on a very
Yeah,
higher level? Yeah,
this is
literally.
beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Well, I love the way
Molecular.
you're articulating and you're creating those visualizations and the usage of the terms and the words that you're doing. Um, makes me become more aware of what you're trying to portray.
Yeah. So I think that's meditation is something I'm fond of, and I want to meditate the way I feel. I don't. It's not harmful to learn it a certain way, but I feel like I can innovate a way of meditation, which I know that
Hmm.
I'm feeling peaceful now by doing something a certain way.
Hmm.
So this is one of those things for me, and when I'm in that state, it's really relaxing. It's like it's just I'm just breathing and I'm just being me. I'm there. I'm just existing, and that in itself and that realization is just making me shed so much of
Beautiful.
yeah, energy, which is not needed right now, which I need to relax.
This is exactly like I remember this science experiment in school where I think in dirty water when you put alum, then
Mm-hmm.
all the particles they start settling down and the water starts becoming clear. So in the same manner, when you're at your home, the home is providing you that alum, and all whatever the stress that is there on your head, it starts settling down, and you start becoming more clear in your head and your space, right?
Yeah, you're in an
Yes.
environment where you don't have triggers, you don't have stimuli.
Exactly.
In my own room,
Mm.
so I can just, not focusing on anything is also an it's an
Mm.
ability.
Interesting.
Just having no focus,
Just
being
being there, doing nothing,
just
thinking about
existing,
nothing,
yes,
being
merely
in silence.
existing and just breathing, you
So
know.
that is the power of silence. When you are silent in your thoughts, in your impressions,
Hmm.
expressions, you're just there in that moment. You're just enjoying that moment, and you become that moment. You become one with that moment. It's almost like you're flowing without even having any kind of an impact, any kind of an effort or impulse. You're just in that state of being. That's a very powerful state.
Yeah, that is.
All right. On that note, Dr. Zara, one last question before we end this beautiful podcast. Because of the dearth of time, I feel like having conversation for you for a longer period of time, elongating it a bit more. But for the dearth of time, one last question that I want to ask you is:
Yes.
if you go back and you turn back the time and go back in your timeline
Mm-hmm.
and you talk to your younger self, what would be
Mm-hmm.
that one piece of advice you would like to give her? Or you would not like to give her any kind of advice?
Um, Definitely, I would like to tell myself to um,
This is a
speak up.
good advice. This is very
No,
nice.
no, no, no. I'm trying to maybe
I
not
like
do that.
I like this advice.
Vicky, you're cutting me short. I'm not done yet.
Go on. Please go
The horse is making me So what I'm trying to say is, I thought, I wish that I could have been a little more. I would have caused some trouble. I think it's important for kids to just go and make some menace, be part of some havoc.
on.
I think I was lacking in that. That's very necessary, and I make sure that my younger siblings, they get in some fights, just be part of a ball and get out of it. It's a
Mhm,
skill that
mhm,
you need to learn as a child, and to stand up for a stranger. I
mhm,
think this thing, um, regardless of all that I was thinking and my values and everything, I still was very timid. This is one thing that I wish that I had picked it up and I knew how to solve it. Because, for parents, my parents didn't necessarily think that it was a bad thing. They thought our child is not a troublemaker. She's well away from trouble and all of that. But I think that this quality, I should have inculcated it. Been part of ragged situations uh,
hmm.
of fights and
I
things
think in
like
the
that.
future, all the schools should be giving some kind of skill training for
Mosh pit.
how you can bite people, how you can trouble them, how you can kick them, and you can pick up on girls and boys and all.
No, 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 no. What I'm trying to
The
say is,
what you say, the knowledge of Aikido, the Japanese technique of how you can. I think self defense is something that should be taught in schools. I very strongly
yeah,
believe that because a lot of bullying happens and a lot of taunting and teasing happens, and kids should be made aware about the various touch to their bodies, a good touch
yeah,
and bad touch. and also so that they don't get abused in whatever manner. And also definitely something with regard to self-defense, where they become aware that their body is something that they have to protect. Their mind, their body and soul is something that they have to protect, and no one can coerce or force you into any kind of situations or any kind of positions. So I think this creating this awareness is extremely important in schools, which nowadays is not happening much. Only the PTs and the yogas and all those things are
Mm,
happening, but nothing with regard to self-control, and all these self-help things are not being discussed much. There's something I feel is a need of
precisely,
the
precisely. That covers my point as well, where
hour.
there could be a simulation of a certain fight or something,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
really like
I feel
putting the
maybe
kids
maybe
into
in
a.
the near future when VR, AR, MR will be penetrating more into these different sectors. I feel that these role play scenarios will be there, and people will become more aware, because you don't have to go there physically. You can just observe it in a cognitive mind space, and you
Mhm.
can just get the awareness that we get from the videos that are there, or just by observing someone. It's a kind of an observational learning. Or that is something that will happen in the near future. But it's more about what are the various things that you add so that you can bring that perspective in.
Right. Well put. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say as well.
This is exactly what you were saying.
Yeah.
I'm just articulating whatever your thoughts were.
How nice of you, Vicky.
No in between.
Long overdue this talk.
No, but on this note, I just want to mention that Dr. Zara, it's always a pleasure having a conversation with you.
Pleasure's
I'm always
mine.
looking forward to having a conversation with you, bringing all these beautiful insights for the listeners to get those learnings, create the impact in life. And thank you once again
Soon,
for
soon.
coming here and taking this precious time out of your busy schedule. Come here to
Thank
have
you,
this free
Vicky.
flow kind of a conversation. I hope you enjoyed the flow, the
Mm-hmm.
things that we discussed, how I made you think, how the different perspectives we shared, the conversation flow happened. I hope you enjoyed all that.
Yes, definitely. It was lovely. Thank you for having me.
Sure, sure. So on this note, any last thoughts that you want to leave with the listeners? Any quote, any line that is something that you use a lot in your life that you want to share with the listeners?
No line as such that I use a lot, but one should learn to stand up for themselves and stand up for others when they see something wrong.
Beautiful.
And I think we should never let anything hold us back from voicing the truth. I would like to say, if you cannot stop something, if you see something bad, try and stop it
Mhm.
with your hands. And if you
Mm.
cannot do that, then stop it with your words. At least verbalize that this is wrong. And if you cannot do that, then at least in your mind, tell yourself and never let yourself get accustomed to something that is wrong. Remind yourself that this will always be wrong. So,
Beautiful.
yeah, that is
So it's
one thing.
definitely creating an awareness, having an intention, and to take the right action. That is something that we should all teach our kids, all the people who are
Yes.
there, they should follow that. And it's a beautiful note on which we are ending and creating this conversation again, Dr. Zara. Thank you so much for joining in, and
Thank you,
I'll
Vicky.
connect with you soon. Take care.
Soon, hopefully. See you.
Take
Good
care. God
night.
bless.
You
Good
too.
night.